This video will show you how to replace the rear center lower control arm on a Chrysler 300. This is part of the rear suspension located behind your rear wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground and the suspension is hanging. To remove the wheel, we're going to remove all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts and we can get the wheel off of here. Now that we have the wheel out of the way, let's have a look inside this area. Now looking along where our lower control arm and rear shock connect, we have a piece of mounting hardware. Now we have an 18mm mounting nut on the rearward side, and as for this bolt, it has a head on the forward side. We'll be holding that with a 15mm. Continuing on, we have to apply support underneath this area of the lower control arm so we can remove the mounting bolt. When doing so, you want to be extremely careful that you're not in an area that's at a slant like this is here. Your jack could potentially slide. Just be extremely careful. We'll just lightly jack this up until we can remove our mounting bolt. Use a hammer and punch if necessary. Now that we have that bolt out of there, we can relieve pressure from here and we're going to apply our support a little bit further inboard. Now just as before with this, when you do apply support, we don't want to be at an area with an angle. You can see that we do have this circular port right along this area. We can grab onto this edge. Now that I've moved this, let's make our way underneath the front lower aspect. We can remove this mounting bolt. We have an 18mm for each side. Right in this area, we have a 21mm mounting nut, and on the forward side, the bolt actually comes through from there. We'll be using a 7/16 Allen head on the opposite side to hold that mounting bolt. Now that we have the mounting nut off of there, and you can spin it a little bit, it should be broken free. Let's go ahead and tap this out of place. Use a hammer and punch. Now we're making our way all the way to the inboard side of the lower control arm, where it connects to our subframe. Now as you can see, this piece of hardware, once we start removing it, it can only go so far. It's going to hit up against our exhaust pipe. Now some good news about this side lower control arm is that this pipe can actually pivot a little bit once you break it free at the muffler side from the body of the vehicle. So we'll go ahead and follow this pipe to the far side of the muffler. All the way back here at our rear muffler, this is where we can see the hanger up along the top. This is just a rubber hanger. Once we do have this broken free, it's going to want to come down, so I have something under here to catch it for me. We will have to move this around a little bit so we can gain access to that lower control arm mounting hardware. I'll use a pry bar. There we are. Now we're at that inside hardware here on the lower control arm. We have a 15mm headed mounting bolt that comes through from the rear towards the front. And on the far side, an 18mm mounting nut. I'm just going to hold the bolt head here and I'll remove the mounting nut. There's that. Let's make sure we can break this bolt free before continuing on. This is a good sign. Now at this point, we're going to have to either raise or lower the jack underneath our rear control arm so we can remove this bolt carefully. Now we can finish removing this mounting bolt. You want to keep in mind, we have pressure underneath this, but it could potentially still move. We have pressure from our rear coil spring on this, so just be extremely careful throughout this entire process. Now we're going to start lowering this rear control arm. We want it to pivot it down from the inboard side. We're carefully removing our coil spring from this area. We don't want it to fall out and potentially hurt us, so we'll have to hold on to that throughout this process. Once we have it out of position, we should be able to slide the control arm out and away from our knuckle on the outboard side. If your coil spring's stuck in the lower control arm, you can gently pry it out of position. If you need to, you could use a pry bar. There it is, friend. Prior to installation of any brand new part, of course, we need to make sure we clean and inspect our mounting surfaces. Up along the body of the vehicle, you should find that you have a rubber mount. We're not using any type of detergent here, which could potentially cause damage. We just want to make sure it's soft and pliable. Continuing on, we're moving back down towards that subframe where we had removed our lower control arm. We'll just give this a quick wipe. There is a rubber bushing there. Just make sure it's not rotted, weak, or damaged in any way. That looks good. Now we're on the outboard side, just behind that rear knuckle. Right down inside this area. Just make sure nothing's damaged there. That looks good. Now let's have a look at our original control arm. Inside of this port, where the coil spring was, typically you're going to find a rubber mount. We have to transfer that over to the brand new lower control arm. When we do so, let's make sure we have it in the same orientation. I'm just going to gently pry this out of place. I'll be using a flat blade screwdriver. You can use pretty much anything that can make its way into this area and gently remove it. There we are, it's starting to move here. Okay, let's transfer this over to the brand new one. We'll just give this a quick inspection. We'll transfer it over to the brand new one here. Same orientation. Press it right on there. Easy peasy. Let's get this in the vehicle. Now we can install that lower control arm. We're taking this and we're bringing the outboard side into our knuckle first. We have our outboard mounting bolt that's going to come through from the front towards the rear. Now you're typically going to find that it's a tight fit in this area. We're going to lightly tap on the control arm, driving it into the proper position. I'm using a rubber mallet. We'll start on our mounting nut, but we are leaving this loose. Now it's time to install our rear coil spring. When we go to put this in position, there's a couple things that we want to pay attention to. Essentially, each side of the coil spring has an end. And if you were looking at the rubber mount for it, whether it's down at the control arm or up at the body of the vehicle, you're going to find that there's an area for the end of it to slide into. It needs to be perfectly aligned before we continue on applying pressure. As I bring this coil spring into place, I'm paying attention down at the bottom. That's the side that cannot spin. Up along the top, if you needed to, you could spin that upper rubber mount. Make sure that we're slid in here. We have our jack underneath the control arm in a safe area. We'll start bringing this up, and as I mentioned, we need to make sure that that mount's properly aligned. Just go ahead and adjust it as necessary. We'll be aware of any pinch points as we continue on. Before I go too far, I'm just going to double check each side of the coil spring here. We want to make sure it cannot move out of place as we continue on applying pressure. Can be dangerous. Now we're focusing inside this area. We have to install our mounting bolt. Now you may have to either raise or lower, and you may also have to either move this out or inboard. It needs to be properly aligned. This mounting bolt is going to come through from the rear towards the front. Once we have that in position, we'll continue on with the mounting nut. This bolt we are also leaving loose. I've got that through. Let's start on the mounting nut. Now let's pay attention down in this area. We have to make sure that this arm aligns with our knuckle. You can use a ratchet strap if necessary, just be extremely careful when doing so. Once we have it aligned, the bolt has to come through from the inboard side to the outboard side here. So once I do have it aligned, I'll be putting something in here so I can remove my ratchet strap, and then I'll be using my bolt in the proper direction. There we are. I put my awl in here, that's holding it. You can always use a punch if necessary. Let's release pressure from this ratchet strap so we can start installing that bolt. There we are. We can move this around as necessary. Get the bolt started in, and then we'll tap it through using our hammer. We have our mounting nut. We'll start it on, leave this loose as well. Now we can move our support from here a little bit further outboard on the control arm. Once again, we want to make sure we're not in an area where it could potentially slide. It's time for the lower hardware for our lower shock to our lower control arm. We'll adjust the height of the lower control arm as necessary. As for our mounting bolt, that comes through from the front towards the rear. We'll start on the mounting nut afterward. It's getting close here. Now, before we tighten or torque any of these mounting bolts, we're going to bring the suspension into the ride height position. For that, I'm going to carefully raise my lower control arm up. After that, we'll tighten and torque. We have it in ride height position. Let's continue on with our mounting hardware. I'm on the inboard side of my lower control arm first. I'll hold my bolt head, snug this up. Now that I have that snug, I'm going to torque it to 75 foot-pounds. Now we can tighten and torque our shock lower mounting hardware. I'm going to hold my bolt head here. We'll snug it up, and the torque for this is 53 foot-pounds. Now we can make our way a little bit further towards the knuckle. We have two more pieces of hardware, one up here, one just below it. We'll start with this upper one. Holding that bolt head. We'll snug this up, and then I'm going to torque it to 100 foot-pounds. Down here, I'm holding my mounting nut with my 18 millimeter. Let's bottom this out. With that snug, I'll torque it to 75 foot-pounds. Everything here is torqued. We can release pressure from underneath our lower control arm. It's time to reinstall the exhaust. We want to make sure we have this sitting in the hanger properly. You should be able to pivot it as necessary. We'll slide that right into place. Once you do have it in there, just double check to make sure it's secured. You do not want this falling out while you're driving down the road. One last quick inspection in this area, and we can reinstall our rear wheel. Once you have that in place, continue on to starting on all 5 of your 21 millimeter lug nuts. We're going to bottom them out. We'll get the wheel safely on the ground and then torque each of them to 110 foot-pounds. We've got the wheel back on the ground. We'll be torquing these in a crisscross manner to that 110 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay friend, we finished the installation of our rear lower control arm. Now the next thing you have to do is take your vehicle for a road test, listen for any odd noises, and get yourself a 4-wheel alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.